So, what are we really hungry for when we are using food to celebrate or commiserate? I'm Danielle Gardner and I'm here with Suzanne Culberg, and we're going to talk about this subject today. So, welcome, Susan, and let's just dive into the first question here. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with food and how you used to sort of use it to like celebrate, commiserate?
Thank you, Danny. This is my passion. Food is my passion, still is. So I have a very long dieting history, so I will keep it short for this call. My parents put me on my first diet when I was 4 to fit into the flower girl dress for my sister's wedding. And it was all about restriction. And on Monday, we start as a family and we don't have all the things. Invariably by Thursday, we give up spectacularly.
Having all the things.
Have a weekend blowout. And then Sunday's like that doom and gloom day where we clean out the pantry and go back to, broccoli and mandarins and, not much else. So I didn't learn the best habits growing up. And it's not from a place of blame. Like my parents did the best they knew how to do. And in the 80s, that's what we did. We did low fat and low this and, and that's just the way our family was. So I moved out at 18 and I got really, really big. I'd always been bigger, but when I could finally have the food freedom, it was great. All the stuff I was never allowed to have as a kid, soft drink, chips, unless the weekend, I could have whenever I wanted. And my weight ballooned as a result. So then I joined a well-known program and I dropped a lot of weight. I'm talking like 43 kilos, so nearly 100 pounds for the people who measure that way. And then I gained it all back. And then I dropped 60 kilos, so 120, 130 pounds, gained it all back. And I just turned to food for lots of reasons. When I needed a pick-me-up, like when I was doing too many things and what I really needed was rest, but I couldn't rest because I had uni and I had commitments and I had a job and I had all the things that had to happen. So I would just eat. And I used to have this motto when I was studying that sugar helped the information stick. Like what a limiting belief that is to embed. But I'd turn to food to get me through, or if I was lonely, to fill a void or like to feel joy. And even if it was only for a few minutes, afterward the guilt and shame would kick in. But there's that. And the biggest one, I don't know if I actually shared this publicly before, but if I was frustrated, if I was angry, I was never modeled how to deal with those emotions. And so I would eat because when I was guilty, that's actually aimed at me. So I'd rather feel guilt than anger or anything. So that's a big reason why I ate. And so, my weight went up and down and up and down. And I'm talking in excess of 500 kilograms, lost and regained. And then I got to a point where I had 2 young children of my own. And they were a really big turning point for me because I didn't want to teach them all the behaviors that I had learned. And also I couldn't look after them, if I'm honest. I was over 150 kilograms. So it's like 330 pounds. Getting up and down off the floor was really difficult. I had one toddler and one who was just starting to pull himself up. And I thought, I can't keep up with these two. Like I physically can't. I can't get up and down off the floor. Something has to change. But I can't do this to myself again. I can't diet. I can't restrict. I can't beat myself up. There must be something else. And that's when I found like mindset and started looking at, why was I eating when I wasn't hungry? What was I really hungry for? And how could I start to do this thing for the long term, not just, I was really good at losing weight, but I wasn't good at keeping it off,
Yeah. And you've kind of started to touch on the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is, what is it that we are really hungry for? I've discovered my own little insights on this, and you've kind of touched on some, but what would you say about that? What are we really hungry for when we are reaching for food or drinks, and we're not thirsty, we're not hungry,
I think the most common one would be rest. Like we're tired, so we're taking in that food or that caffeine or that sugar or that hit to keep us going, like to do more, to achieve more, like we're on that hamster wheel. And a lot of us, like high achievers, feel guilty about rest, but we don't feel guilty about eating because we have to eat. Like, that's part of life. So what we'll often do is we'll associate what we really want to do, which may be watch TV, read a book, like something like that, with eating. And so many people that I work with, and myself too, it's like, I can't just sit down and watch TV without eating, because that would be like, you know, that would, it's fascinating when you unpack it. But when you eat and do it, it seems okay because a person's got to eat. So so it's rest, what we're really hungry for. Sometimes it's actually extra energy. Like, although I was super morbidly obese, I was malnourished because I didn't actually eat a lot of nourishing foods. They were convenience foods, they were fast foods, or they were diet foods. And all the good stuff's being leached out of those, you know? So nourishment, to numb, to avoid feeling like I don't want to feel mad, or I don't want to feel upset, or I don't want to feel anything directed outward. Whereas when I eat, for those few moments that I was eating, I feel joy, like, because food doesn't talk back and food doesn't disappoint you and whatever. But then afterwards you feel the guilt, which is very indirected. So like that feeling of void or joy, you know, in the moment, but then having to deal with the consequences afterwards.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I just love how you started with rest. I mean, that I've never heard anyone put it quite like that, you know. And yeah, it's, you know, I've been a high achiever and just a very active person all the time. And this idea of rest was very foreign to me, you know. I was always like just churning and burning through goals, you know, without any rest. The other things that I've noticed that the reason why we eat when we're not really hungry or thirsty, there's this big like social context or like acceptance or something like that. So like in a family environment, someone says, would you like a cup of tea? And it's just somehow polite to say yes, right? We're all having a cup of tea. And then there's another cup of tea. And, you know, if biscuits are always accompanying those cups of teas, you know, great. But even just like everything about food, like, do you want to go out? Or do you want to have a toasted sandwich? Or do you want to, it's just sort of like, yeah, okay. Because there's this, you don't want to say no. You don't want to sort of seem, what's the word, antisocial somehow by saying no to food that's been offered, right?
Yes,
and actually I do know I do know that you've talked about that too, like with, you know, when the husband or the children or something come home with takeaway. I've heard you talk about that, and it's like it's hard to say no because they've done that, right?
It's really hard to say no at first, but if you have that really open conversation, like there's something that I say, it's like there's no passive eating, like there's passive smoking. And when we don't want to take personal responsibility, and there's no judgment, because I have done that and sometimes I still do it. It's Jeremy's fault, he brought the chocolate home from the servo. It's my kids' fault, they didn't eat it, so I couldn't waste it, you know. Or I bought it for the kids. When I truly buy something for the kids, I deliberately buy something that I don't like. But when I fall into that excuse as I've bought it for the kids, it's my sideways way of sabotaging, you know? And when we have really open conversations with people, most of the time they're really understanding, and you can have a really in-depth discussion about what it is you would like. So like the love language of acts of service, like, will I make you a cup of tea or something, can also be met. Like for us, we're recording this, what's now my evening. I said to my husband, could you put the kids to bed so I can jump on with Danny? And he's like, yeah, sure. So that's an acts of service without giving me a cup of tea or a biscuit or something. So they can be met in other ways. And also when people meet you, like who haven't known you any other way, that's just who you are. Like people know in general now that I will say no, and that's okay. And if they ever look a little bit kind of perturbed or something, I'll have a conversation. Or depending on the person, I might just say, oh, can I take some home? And, you know, I take it home. The gift is in the giving, whether or not I eat it. Like, I don't like chuck it out in their face. Do you know what I mean? But like, I don't eat it just to be polite, because them giving it to me, that's the service, and me being grateful for it. What I do with it after that, it doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me as well that one thing that's really come to my awareness that's really helped with this being offered food type thing is incorporating my human design strategy. So I'm a generator, you're a manifesting generator. And so we have that that sacral response. And so my husband, he's a manifesting generator. So now I know if I say to him, like I'm asking him, you know, I'm making a cup of tea because I know that I want one. But if I say, can I get you a cup of tea? And he goes, I'm like, I just know that's a no, you know. And then even if he tries to say, yeah, go on then, I go, no, that was a no. It was a no. And you go, yeah,
that's powerful.
You know, so like honoring our sacral responses is a really great way to go about it as well. Well, for generators anyway. Yeah, I don't know.
But also, you can still offer, would you like me to bring you a glass of water, like with some ice in it, because that's a bit special, or you know, a lemon or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great idea. And then this kind of takes us into the next bit. But one thing I've noticed as well is, especially lately, there was some things I was doing in my business and they were kind of stretching me out of my comfort zone a bit. And so once I finished them, I felt like, okay, like I might have gone like, yeah, that was good. You know, I did a, you know, good job, or, you know, but it was still sort of like, right now I need something. And so because I didn't have a plan, it was like I didn't have any food in the house this one night, and I just ended up eating like a bag of chips and, you know, a few glasses of wine. And I was just like, you know, it's okay. And, you know, but I was just really conscious of myself doing it. And I'm like, I just sat there thinking, how could I have done this better? How could I have celebrated, but in a more nourishing way, you know? So let's talk about that. What are some healthy ways or things that we can do to both celebrate and, like, of course, commiserate? Like when things don't go to plan, and we're feeling a bit down, that's also, of course, returning to food. So
yes, exactly.
How do you go about it?
First thing I do, if something hasn't gone to plan and I'm aware of it, like, because sometimes it's become such a habit, it's automatic. You don't realize until after. And it can take time. Like you can go, oh, I've heard Suzanne speak about this time and time again, or I know what I'm supposed to do, but I just don't do it. So when you catch yourself afterwards, because that's what will happen at first, instead of beating yourself up, because that guilt leads to the spiral of you doing it again, it's to reframe or re-language what's happened. So one that I say, and people always laugh, but then they say it and they message me and we all have a laugh, is, that was suboptimal. You know, so like,
suboptimal.
You know, because if we go, I'm this, you know, I'm lazy, I'm fat, I'm stupid, like we're really associating ourselves into that behavior, and then we do it again and again. So it's like, oh, this person didn't buy the thing, or like that nobody turned up, that was suboptimal. Like you're dissociating yourself from the behavior, you know. And then it's to have the things in place, or have a list of things, because you might not feel like them in the moment. Like, so having a list, like an actual written down list, things I could do, things I could reach for, and what is it you're really looking for? Like sometimes it's that break, like you've been switched on all day and you're looking to, which is what the food gives you, or it can come back into the body because we feel like we've been on or delivering or, you know, giving, and we need some sort of replenishment. So it can be food that we need, but it's an awareness thing. So there's a couple of different things that I do. I've got my list. One of them is, this is when I remember. So if the thing's already left, you're like, that's suboptimal, what could I do next time? But if you catch yourself beforehand, you go, am I really hungry? Like, am I physically hungry? Check in with yourself. And if it's a yes, and you're like, I want the Tim Tams, they're always my go-to. It's not to say, no, I can't have them. It's like, okay, well, what nourishing thing could I have first? And invariably people will ask me, well, what do you eat, Suzanne? And I don't share it not to be offhand or thing, but everybody's body is different. So what's nourishing for me will be different. But you have the things that you know that are good for you, and eat that first, and then say, after that, I can have the Tim Tam. Because sometimes you will still have it, but you might have one and truly enjoy it rather than a whole bag and feel kind of suboptimal. Do you know what I mean? So the first thing is to check in, are you legitimately hungry? And if yes, you say, okay, that thing, I can have it after I've had this. And after a while, most of the time you won't have the thing that you originally craved. And even if you do, it will be a much smaller volume. And the other thing is, if you check in, you go, actually, I'm not hungry, like I'm just looking for a pattern interrupt, a break, something totally different to come back into my
Comfort.
body.
Yeah.
Comfort. What could that be for you? Could it be messaging a friend? Could it be journaling? Could it be a cup of tea and like sitting outside, like in the fresh air, coming back and grounding always works for me. Another thing I do, I've got it here and I'll show you because it's literally on my desk. I do this thing called diamond dots. So it's basically cross stitch for lazy people. And it's these little dots and then you've got this little pen and you just put them onto there. And I find it like mind numbing, as in like I don't have to think, but I can just, it allows me to process, but my hands are busy. Because I think with eating, I like to keep my hands busy. So this one's a lighthouse. There's all different designs.
So was that lighthouse coloured in beforehand at all? Or
no, it's basically...
because it looks like a photo from what I can see.
Yeah. So basically behind it, it's got all numbers. Right. And then you pick up the dot and put it on the colour. So and this is what this chart is here. So it's plain, but the dots are coloured. Wow. And it tells you where to put it. And it's, as I said, like I'm not creative enough. Or
what, have you got to glue it down? Or
No, you just pick it up with a pen. It's already sticky.
Right.
And you put the dot onto this. So this would be all sticky and then it has plastic and you just lift it.
Oh, wow.
But this is the latest craze, and I've done, I don't know now, about 10 of these. And some of them are big. Like the one I'm working on now that I finished this one is 1 meter by 1 meter. So it will take me months.
Wow.
But, I just set a timer because like I have other things to do. Because that's the other thing about food. It's fast. You can inhale a block of chocolate in no time flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So set 10-minute timer, do that, really allow yourself to come back into your body and then go about your day, because it's the break that you want usually. And then that's the thing, like, or as I said, even eating can be an act of self-care if it's mindful eating, but if you go and then blow a whole packet, and then another thing I go into, but I'm also wary of time, is I don't do rules, but I have guidelines. And one of my personal ones is I don't eat anything from a packet. Everything I eat has to be plated up. And sometimes I'll be like, I can't be bothered putting on the plate. I know I don't really want to eat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just little things that you have in place that you develop over time. And the behavior and the thoughts, and sometimes it's still there, but it lessens.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I was just thinking when it comes to chips, like, I have to have it in a bowl. But somehow that doesn't seem to stop me from going back. But that's when there's no plan. So, one of the ideas that I was thinking about in reflection is that when I know that I'm going to have a situation like I've had recently, and I'll finish and I'm going to feel like I just need some love or comfort or whatever, then like what I could do is have a nice meal prepared, or have John cook me a meal, so that when we finish, we just sit down to this mindful meal. And yes, there might be a glass of wine or not. But other things could be, prepping up the bathroom to have like a really nice candlelit bath or something, like that.
Essential
really
oil,
nice,
smell.
nurturing experience. So I think if you're watching this, actually, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to make sure I document this, and I'll share it on my Facebook page. I'm going to come up with a bit more of a list of just a few options that I can turn to and that might be helpful for you as well. So, if we all share a few of our ideas, we could really help each other out in that way.
Yeah, and a list of 10 is ideal. 10 things you can do for yourself, by yourself, in 10 minutes or less. Life-changing, because you just look at your list and go, which one do I feel like doing right now?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so maybe we'll share some of, you can send me some more of your ideas. I might put them in the posts that we share here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So in closing this, I just wanted to ask you, Suzanne, about your mentorship program. So I know that you are helping women with this, and I heard you talking about the self-employed spread, I think is what you called it. We might put a link to that presentation as well. That was great. So tell us about your Why Wait community.
Oh, my community is amazing. So basically it's a combination of some pre-recorded modules that have tips on things I talked about. So creating your own eating guidelines. So basically, I don't tell anyone what to do. I guide them to listen to their body and to tune in, because that's something we haven't been taught to do in general as a society. We've been given someone else's framework, been told to do that, and when the results haven't come, just try harder, just cut out more. I don't focus on that. It's about adding things in. It's about being really kind to yourself, and it's about sharing in a community what's really going on. So it's like the weight loss community that doesn't do weigh-ins. Like, we don't track, we look at other ways of measuring progress, and we look at what's really going on. So there's pre-recorded modules, there's live calls. We have 4 live calls a month at varying times, because I have people from the US and people from the UK. I'm in Australia. And really, really close-knit Facebook community where you can come on and talk about what's really happening, rather than just the surface stuff that, you know, everything's fine, or the whining. Like, I'm not saying there's not a place to have a whine and stuff, as in either type of whine, but it's not going to move forward. You come in and you go like, this was suboptimal, and next time I'm going to try, or this was suboptimal, what are some suggestions that I could do next time, rather than sitting in the blame game or it's all, you know, it's my fault game. And it's a really beautiful community. I'm really honored to facilitate the space.
Beautiful. Well, I'll make sure that I grab the link for that and put it under the video here so people can go and check it out. So thank you for joining me in this conversation. I think we've identified a few really key things that people can go away with, and as they move forward, do things differently with food. So thank you so much, Suzanne, for joining me, and bye for now, everyone.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye, everyone.